Left-handedness. If you're left-handed, chances are you're living life on hard mode. Scissors betray you, desks ambush your elbows, and spiral notebooks. It's just the worst. But being a lefty isn't a handicap. It's actually a secret weapon. Lefties are nature's human curveballs. And this is especially true in sports. Since 90% of people are right-handed, everyone trains against righties. So when a lefty steps up, a southpaw boxer, a lefty pitcher or hitter, a tennis player with a backward spin, it's like fighting someone whose controller is mapped differently. Opponents have to think a little more when facing a lefty, and that split second can give them the advantage. That unpredictable edge has been documented numerous times across elite athletes. Rafael Nadal's left-handed serves won him over 85 career tournaments, and Barry Bonds, the left-handed slugger, controversially holds the all-time record for most home runs at 762. But it's not just physical. Living in a righty-designed world forces lefties to adapt, literally rewiring their brains. They switch hands, flip instructions, and navigate backward systems daily. That builds insane mental flexibility and creativity. Studies even show lefties often have stronger interhemispheric brain connections. That's just a fancy way to say their two brain halves talk to each other like besties. Anxiety. You know that one friend who packs sunscreen, bug spray, 3 backup chargers, and a spare flashlight just for a short stroll through the park? That's anxiety doing its thing. Sure, it can feel like living with a smoke detector that goes off when the toast is slightly brown. But that same alarm system is why anxious people often save the day before disaster even hits. Anxiety makes the brain run constant simulations, which means they're usually the ones who already have Plan B, C, and D laminated in color-coded folders. They notice the tiny details everyone else misses. The micropause in someone's voice, the weird flicker in the projector before it dies mid-meeting. That's hyper-awareness. And it's basically empathy and foresight rolled into one. Evolution loves anxious people. While the chill caveman probably got eaten by the camouflaged tiger, the anxious one saw the signs, built traps, and lived to tell the tale. In the modern world, they're the cautious drivers, the meticulous planners, and the reason your group project didn't implode. Yes, crippling anxiety can be awful for someone's mental health, but sometimes it can also prepare you for the unknown world ahead. Baldness. What's aerodynamic, heat efficient, and screams confident boss-like energy? Bet you weren't thinking of a bald head. Let's start with the physics. Hair is basically nature's beanie, great in winter, awful in heat. Go bald, and suddenly your scalp becomes a high-performance radiator, shedding heat like a Formula One car shedding drag. That's why soldiers, athletes, and gym enthusiasts often keep it clean up top. It's low maintenance, sweat-friendly, and dries faster than you can say hairdryer. Then there's the psychology. Studies show bald men are perceived as stronger, smarter, and more authoritative. Same guy, same face. Just remove the hair, and boom, instant promotion aura. It's called the power buzz effect, and it's why half of Hollywood's action heroes look like freshly polished bowling balls. And let's not forget the perks. No bad hair days, and no overpriced salon visits. Baldness isn't a loss. It's the ultimate power upgrade. Flat feet. Flat feet used to be the punchline of old gym class jokes, like laughing at someone who won't finish the 12-minute mile test walking or running. But it turns out your stereotypical PE teacher was wrong. Flat feet are basically the all-terrain vehicles of the human body, built for endurance, shock absorption, and steady footing when everyone else is slipping. Here's how it works. People with lower arches seem to have better shock absorption compared to those with higher arches. Their feet are able to spread out the impact more effectively when walking or running. Older military studies even found that flat-footed soldiers got fewer stress fractures than their high-arched buddies, who are busy sending every vibration straight up to their shins. Foot structure is important, but no arch beats a very high arch any day of the week. Plus, a flatter foot gives you a bigger contact zone with the ground. That means better balance, increased stability, and more control on uneven terrain. You're practically snowshoeing on bare feet, so maybe you don't spring like a cheetah, but you can walk all day like a tank. Turns out, flat feet can actually go the farthest. Short kings and queens. Being short isn't a disadvantage. It's just physics with better handling. You've got a lower center of gravity, tighter turning radius, and way less air resistance. You're basically the sports car of the human body lineup. Shorter folks often crush it in agility and balance. Need to dodge, dive, dip, duck, and dodge. Turns out being shorter makes you better at this because of less rotational inertia. Translation: you're great at dodgeball and can backflip for days, while the tall people faceplant every time. That's why elite gymnasts, divers, and martial artists are often fun-sized humans with lightning reflexes. And in the heat, short bodies run cooler, literally. More skin relative to mass means you shed heat faster. So while taller runners are melting like candles, you're cruising comfortably in the sun. Then there's the longevity bonus. Studies show shorter people, on average, live 2 to 5 years longer, possibly thanks to fewer cells to become cancerous and more efficient heart performance. You're not vertically challenged. Your evolution's compact, long-lasting model. Small frame, big mileage. Lactose intolerance. You know that moment when you down a giant milkshake and your stomach just politely declines the invitation? That's lactose intolerance, the world's most common no-thanks response to dairy. About 2/3 of adults can't digest lactose properly, which means the weird ones are actually the people who can drink milk without rushing to the bathroom. But here's the upside. When milk is off the menu, creativity kicks in. Lactose intolerant folks become culinary MacGyvers, making sauces out of cashews, creamy desserts from coconut milk, and coffee that tastes better with oat milk anyway. By skipping dairy, they often eat more plants, nuts, and fermented foods, stuff that's rich in fiber, heart-friendly, and microbiome approved. Yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and kombucha are all born from societies that swiped left on milk. Avoiding milk might even help long-term health. Less dairy means less saturated fat and possibly lower IGF-1 hormone levels, which some studies link to reduced cancer risk. So, lactose intolerance isn't a curse. It's evolution's way of telling us to get creative with our food and explore. Introversion. You're at a party. Music's loud. Everyone's talking over each other, and you're wondering how long you have to stay before it's socially acceptable to vanish like Batman. That's introversion. While extroverts charge from human interaction, introverts recharge away from them, preferably with a book, a snack, and zero small talk. But the urge for quiet isn't always emptiness. It's actually processing power. Introverts notice what others miss because they're actually listening and observing. They're the ones catching the side comment that changes the whole meeting or writing the one email that solves the entire project. Solitude is their creative fuel. Studies show alone time boosts innovation, which might explain why so many inventors, writers, and thinkers preferred peace and quiet compared to parties and group projects. Shy or introverted people also radiate empathy. They know what it's like to feel overlooked, so they include others who are, and when they lead, they don't hog the spotlight. They give space to let everyone shine. In a world that never stops talking, introverts are the ones who actually hear it. Colorblindness. You're at an art museum. Everyone is oohing and aahing at a watercolor painting while you're squinting at it, wondering why everyone is so excited over a few shades of dark yellow. That's colorblindness. Not seeing less, just seeing differently. About 300 million people have this remix of vision, where reds and greens blend together like mismatched paint in an art class. But this glitch comes with hidden upgrades. People with color blindness are pros at spotting what others miss. While everyone else is distracted by flashy colors, they're tuned into textures, brightness, and patterns. Studies show that people who are colorblind are better at detecting hidden shapes in red-green camouflage tests. It's like nature gave them built-in cheat codes for pattern recognition. Some also have stronger night vision. Less color noise means more contrast clarity. Back in the day, that might have made them the best hunters in the tribe. Today, they're the ones catching errors on charts, maps, and designs that everyone else overlooks. Dyslexia. You're staring at a page, and suddenly the letters start breakdancing. The B flips into a D, the P spins into a Q, and your brain has no idea what's happening. That's dyslexia, and around 10% of the global population have it. It's not about being less smart. It's about your brain taking a different route to interpret language. Instead of decoding words step by step, it's busy connecting the whole map. Here's the twist. That map view comes with some perks. Some dyslexic thinkers are the ultimate big picture people. They see systems instead of sentences. Where most of us zoom in on commas, they zoom out and spot patterns we're all too busy overlooking. Studies even show they're faster at judging tricky 3D shapes, basically the IMAX version of thinking. That's why dyslexics often crush it in design, engineering, and storytelling. Some scientists call it a neural trade-off. Less reading efficiency, more visual horsepower. Evolution might have said, forget spelling, this one builds castles in their mind. Turns out word scramble might mean better world building. Deaf or hard of hearing. Imagine living in a world that runs on sight instead of sound. No background chatter, no blaring car horns, just the quiet hum of motion, color, and expression. For people who are deaf or hard of hearing, that's just a different kind of signal. Think of it like switching from radio to Wi-Fi. You're not disconnected. You're just tuned into a new network, one made of sight, touch, and intuition. Research shows that when the ears take a back seat, other senses level up. Many deaf people have faster reaction times to movement in their peripheral vision. Their brains literally reroute processing power, turning the audio department into an extra sharp visual control center. And sign language isn't just a way to communicate. It's teaching the brain to be more flexible and adapt. Being bilingual in sign and spoken language sharpens focus, attention, and mental agility. Plus, you can chat across a noisy concert or underwater. Who needs walkie-talkies when you've got hands? In other words, deafness isn't a loss of sound, it's a gain of sight and touch. Seasonal allergies. You know spring has arrived when everyone is busy admiring flowers, but you're already 4 sneezes deep. That's seasonal allergies. Nature's way of reminding you you're basically a human pollen detector. While the rest of the population strolls through fields without a care, allergy sufferers are tracking pollen counts like meteorologists on red alert. You're the first to know when the trees are scheming or when mold levels have quietly declared war indoors. That hyper-reactive immune system? It's basically a built-in environmental alarm. You sneeze before anyone else even smells the grass. Studies suggest allergy-prone folks have immune systems that are very good at surveillance, sometimes catching potential infections or changes early. You also end up with cleaner homes, purer air, and a PhD-level understanding of seasonal changes. So sure, you're sniffling through spring, but you're also the canary in the coal mine keeping everyone else healthy. Face blindness. You walk into a party and realize you've just waved enthusiastically at a coat rack. Happens to the best of us, but for someone with face blindness, it's just a normal weekend outing. That's prosopagnosia, a fancy way to say your brain's face recognition software is permanently stuck, buffering. Prosopagnosia is a spectrum that varies by severity. About 1 in 33 people live with it, which means at least one person at that same party is secretly hoping everyone wears name tags. People with prosopagnosia become expert detectives of human detail, recognizing friends by voice, attitude, or even the way they sit and hold their drink. They tune into tone, posture, and words like audio wizards, decoding personality through vibes. And because they don't judge by appearances, they don't subscribe to the idea that hot people are better than everyone else. They listen, they observe, they remember who you are, not what you look like. Alcohol intolerance. Everyone's clinking glasses, the party's just starting, and 5 minutes later, your face is redder than a stop sign and your heart's beating to the rhythm of the music. Congratulations, your ALDH2 enzyme just rage quit. That's alcohol intolerance, a genetic quirk that turns happy hour into hazard hour. And yet, this supposed weakness is actually a hidden superpower. People with this gene mutation are way less likely to develop alcohol addiction or liver disease. Basically, evolution gave them a built-in party off switch. Their bodies quietly remind them that they really should stop at 1 drink tonight. Here's the science. Your body's supposed to break alcohol down into acetaldehyde, a toxic intermediate, then quickly clean it up. But with the ALDH2 mutation, that second step slows to a halt. The toxin piles up and you get flushing, nausea, and dizziness. So yes, the flush might crash your Friday night, but it could save you decades of liver damage. Sometimes alcohol intolerance is evolution's tough love at its finest. ADHD. This is like having a Formula One engine in a bumper car world. Everyone else is idling through the daily checklist while your brain is firing off 12 ideas, 3 side quests, and one sudden urge to reorganize your entire room. Sure, staying focused on boring tasks feels impossible, but hand an ADHD brain something exciting, and it locks in like a cat on a laser pointer. And here's the secret power, that chaos fuels creativity. ADHD minds are world-class idea factories. While others follow the instructions, ADHD thinkers rewrite them, doodle solutions in the margins, and somehow invent something brilliant along the way. Hyperfocus is their hidden superpower. When passion hits, hours disappear and mastery begins. Their spontaneity makes them adaptable, their energy electrifies teams, and their ability to brainstorm from odd angles leads to solutions no rule follower would dream up. Life hacks? These folks practically invented them out of survival. So ADHD isn't a broken attention system. It's an attention spark, wild, powerful, and game-changing when steered well. Motion sickness prone. You're on a road trip. Everyone's singing, laughing, passing snacks, and you're staring out the window, pale as printer paper, regretting every bite of that breakfast burrito. Welcome to motion sickness, the ultimate betrayal of your inner ear. Here's what's really happening. Your eyes say, "We're sitting still," while your inner ear screams, we're on a roller coaster. The brain, confused as ever, thinks something is messing with your senses, like a toxin, and triggers nausea as a safety reflex. That's why some scientists think motion sickness evolved as an early poison defense system. If your senses don't match, your body assumes you ate something sketchy and tries to purge it. In that light, motion-sick people are actually running the ultra-sensitive premium security system. Their bodies notice sensory glitches long before anyone else does. And there's more. Because they know the struggle, motion-sensitive people become world-class planners. They pick the front seat, pack ginger chews, and can sense turbulence before the pilot announces it. Their hypersensitive vestibular system also gives them superb balance control when it's on their terms. Think yoga, dance, or tightrope focus levels. So sure, motion-sick folks might turn green first, but that's just because they're built with the deluxe safety package. Heavy sweater. Step into a hot day with a naturally high sweat rate body, and the world suddenly feels like an endurance challenge you're secretly built for. While others are overheating, slowing down, and peeling off clothes like a lizard shedding its skin, your cooling system has already shifted into high gear. Sweat is basically a liquid superpower. Humans evolved to outrun almost anything on Earth, not by speed, but by never cooking themselves alive. Heavy sweaters are the purest expression of that design. They dump heat fast, stay in the safe zone longer, and hold a steady core temperature when conditions turn to oven mode. That's why endurance athletes often sweat like fountains. The body is prioritizing survival-level cooling so performance doesn't crater. And there's a hidden bonus: rapid acclimation. High sweaters adjust to hot climates faster, handle prolonged effort better, and develop efficient heat response systems that keep muscles and brains functioning long after others hit the wall. Yes, hydration becomes essential, but with the right fluids, this trait turns blistering days into your competitive advantage. After all, high perspiration is engineered stamina in action. Small hands. I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. You've met people who can magically replace a microscopic screw in the back of a computer, fix a tangled necklace, or reach between the space underneath the driver's seat. Those are the precision engineers of the human species. Small hands come with a secret upgrade: incredible fine motor control. Less mass means less inertia, which means faster, smoother, more exact movements. It's like having the ultra-thin, premium stylus while everyone else is poking around with a giant foam finger. Tiny engine bays, delicate electronics, jewelry repairs, surgery. Small hand folks slip into spaces the rest of us treat like forbidden zones. They can navigate tight mechanical layouts with the same ease a ferret navigates an air vent. Swift, precise, unbothered. Sure, they don't get the same grip span on giant objects, but give them anything delicate, anything finicky, anything that demands steady micro-movements, and they're unstoppable. Fun fact: robotics labs study this exact kind of dexterity. Many cutting-edge robot hands mimic the constraints of smaller human hands because tiny, coordinated fingers are absurdly good at gripping and manipulating the world. Scrawny looking. You know that friend who looks scrawny even though they say they're working out all the time? All that time in the gym, and somehow it doesn't look like it's paying off. That's the low muscle mass body type, an ectomorphic superpower disguised as just being skinny. Here's the secret: less mass means less energy burned with every step. Slender builds are basically engineered for mileage, while heavier bodies spend extra fuel accelerating, decelerating, and just staying cool. Ectomorphic folks glide like efficient little gazelles. Their bodies don't overheat as quickly, their hearts don't strain as hard, and their running economy is off the charts. Long walks, distance races, repeated sprints. This is their home turf. And the health perks? Lower baseline stress on the cardiovascular system and less chronic wear on joints. Their engines run clean for decades. Even elite endurance athletes barely bulk up when lifting because their biology is so committed to efficiency over raw force. They won't be bulldozing through rugby scrums or rocking the rim in a dunk contest. But when a zombie apocalypse hits and you have to run for your life, the slender build will outrun all of us. Early graying. You're in your 20s, you catch a glimpse in the mirror, and a silver streak stares back like it's always been there. Before you panic, early gray isn't a glitch. It's your hair follicles running elite-level quality control. Here's the science in plain English. Making pigment is metabolically expensive. Melanocytes, the cells that color your hair, work like tiny furnaces, pumping out pigment while generating a ton of oxidative stress. When those cells notice things getting too risky, they do something surprisingly smart. They shut down pigment production entirely. It's a biological, better safe than sorry. Ditch the dye line, protect the DNA. By retiring these stress-prone cells early, your follicles may actually preserve structural integrity long-term. Think of it as your hair choosing durability mode over color mode. So yes, gray hair early might add a few years to your look, but biologically, it's the sign of a cautious, high-performance maintenance system. Your hair is risk managing like a pro. Poor sense of direction. There are usually two camps of people: those who remember directions on the first try and almost never use Google Maps, and those who still need their phone GPS to get home when walking the dog around the corner. There are also the ones who might get lost walking along the aisles of a grocery store. That's a poor sense of direction, and it's a real cognitive trait, not a personality quirk. But here's the twist. People who get lost easily often become champions of clear systems. Because they cannot rely on instinctive navigation, they build rock-solid workarounds, hyper-organized instructions, foolproof checklists, beautifully structured processes, and detailed GPS routes that look like they were drafted by NASA. Their survival strategy becomes everyone else's organizational upgrade. Teams rely on them because their systems don't assume magical spatial intuition. They're reproducible, transferable, and resilient. And there's another perk. Getting lost means exploring. A strong SOD person beelines from A to B. A poor SOD person accidentally discovers C, D, E, and a fantastic bakery no one knew existed. Serendipity thrives in wandering minds and wandering feet. Let's just hope you wrote down where the bakery is, so you know how to get back to it next time. You may never remember where you parked, but you might just design the navigation system that helps everyone else get home. Hairy. You know that friend who sheds enough to knit a small sweater and jokes about being part werewolf? Dense body hair is basically a built-in, full-body sensor suite. Each hair follicle is wired with nerve endings, which means dense body hair works like a giant tactile antenna array. A tiny change in airflow? You feel it. A mosquito landing? Detected instantly. Your body becomes a 360-degree motion detector, the kind that goes off even when a fly thinks about approaching. It's early warning tech Mother Nature installed long before Ring doorbells existed. And that's not all. Thick body hair gives real physical benefits. It shields skin from UV radiation, reduces friction in high movement areas, and helps retain heat when the temperature drops. Basically, insulation plus armor plus motion sensors equals biological multi-tool. Sure, in scorching heat, it can slow down sweat evaporation, but in cold climates or abrasive environments, it's the MVP. Imposter syndrome. You walk into a meeting, everyone nods like you belong there, but your brain might think otherwise. What am I even doing here? That's imposter syndrome. Self-doubt wearing a fake mustache and whispering nonsense. But here's the twist. Behind that uncomfortable feeling is a set of hidden upgrades that quietly make imposter syndrome people absolute powerhouses. First, someone with imposter syndrome will prepare like it's the Olympics. They double-check facts, rehearse, research, and then add 3 backup plans for good measure. The result? Their work is often scary good. Teams rely on them because their thoroughness leaves nothing to chance. And socially, imposter syndrome creates empathy and humility. Instead of acting like the smartest person in the room, imposters listen. Really listen. They ask for input, credit their teammates, and avoid the overconfidence traps that sink arrogant leaders. Studies even show colleagues rate them as more effective because they're collaborative, attentive, and genuinely people-centric. Self-doubt also fuels growth. While others assume they're already competent enough, imposters keep learning, improving, upskilling. They evolve because they don't coast. So yes, imposter syndrome feels awful inside, but outside, it often produces results with excellence, empathy, and leadership without the ego. Blind or low vision. You walk into a room, and before anyone else even settles in, a blind person already knows who's there, where the doorway is, and that the heating unit in the corner is making a weird clicking noise for the last 30 minutes. That's the superpower hiding inside blindness or low vision. When one sense goes offline, the brain upgrades the others like a software patch you didn't know was available. Blind individuals often hear with unbelievable precision, picking up tiny shifts in sound, tracing footsteps, or tracking a moving object by nothing but its noise. Some even use echolocation, making soft clicks and reading the returning echoes like real-life human sonar. Turns out bats, dolphins, and blind rodents aren't the only ones who can use this impressive skill. And their memory? It's usually next level. Navigating without sight builds detailed mental maps, routes, textures, patterns, conversations. Many blind adults outperform sighted peers in verbal memory because their brains rely on listening like it's an Olympic sport. Meanwhile, their brains undergo neuroplasticity. That's just a fancy way of saying brain regions normally reserved for vision get repurposed for hearing, touch, and other senses. In a world built for eyes, blind individuals often become masters of the unseen. Joint hypermobility. You discover, usually as a kid, that your joints don't follow the same rules as everyone else's. Elbows bend a little too far. Fingers fold into shapes that make people gasp and say, that can't be normal. That's joint hypermobility. Hypermobile bodies are built for range. Extra joint freedom means smoother arcs of motion, deeper angles, and a natural advantage anywhere flexibility matters. Dance, gymnastics, yoga, martial arts, even certain musical instruments. Your body moves more like a whip than a stick. Fluid, expressive, harder to restrict. And interestingly, that bendiness can act like biological shock absorption. When force hits the body, flexible joints and tissues can stretch instead of tearing. Some limited studies suggest this give might help hypermobile athletes experience fewer muscle or tendon sprains in certain situations, but this extra freedom comes at a cost. That same loose connective tissue that grants you range also means your joints are less stable and more likely to dislocate. So while others are limited by rigid hinges, hypermobile people move through the world with adjustable joints, designed for creativity, expression, and motion without boundaries, as long as they focus on giving their flexible body the solid foundation it needs. High-pitched voice. Most voices get swallowed in noise, drowned out by engines, crowds, airflow, or that one coworker who types like they're punishing the keyboard. But a naturally high-pitched voice cuts through all that chaos like a laser. It vibrates faster, sits higher in the sound spectrum, and slips into the exact frequency range that refuses to be muffled. Here's why that matters. High-frequency voices stay crisp in environments where lower tones disappear. Think busy airports, factory floors, emergency situations, or even a packed playground. Your voice is the one that actually arrives intact on the other side of the noise. Babies, especially, are wired to lock onto those higher pitches. They can pick out their name and sound levels that would make an adult say, "Sorry, what?" And older adults, whose hearing typically fades in the low ranges, often understand a high-pitched speaker more easily than someone booming in bass. In other words, you've got a built-in clarity advantage. Yes, people sometimes stereotype high pitch as less serious, but acoustically, it's a power tool, a broadcast beacon, a voice designed to stay heard when it matters most. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below if there are any interesting topics you would like to learn more about. Now back to the video. Asking stupid questions. There's always that moment in a meeting when everyone pretends they know the leverage synergies your boss is talking about, and you're the only one brave enough to ask the obvious question. That's the moment when the room pauses, and everyone relaxes. Asking stupid questions forces ideas back to their foundations. It exposes assumptions before they harden into plans, timelines, and very expensive mistakes. Groups fail far more often from misunderstood basics than from complex details, and the person willing to interrupt momentum is usually the one preventing future chaos. One clarification now can spare hours of rework later. On a personal level, this habit accelerates learning. Curiosity beats embarrassment every time. People who ask foundational questions close gaps faster because they don't build knowledge on guesswork. Sure, timing matters, and questions that ignore available resources can frustrate others, but used well, stupid questions are rarely stupid. They're quality control for thinking, spoken before mistakes get the chance to multiply. Making weird noises in private. You're alone scrolling on your phone. Suddenly, you start loudly singing Golden, even though you can't hit the notes, and somehow, afterward, you feel better. That's not accidental. Making loud, weird noises in private is one of the fastest ways the body dumps tension. Vocalizing moves stress out of your head and into your chest, throat, and breath. It gives bottled up energy somewhere to go instead of letting it rattle around internally. Think of it as cracking a pressure valve before something starts leaking. There's real physiology behind it too. Deep sounds, humming, singing, even controlled yelling, stimulate the vagus nerve, which nudges the nervous system toward calm. Heart rate slows, muscles unclench. The body gets the message that the danger, real or imagined, has passed. Sure, walls are thin and roommates deserve peace. But when you're alone, those strange noises are the nervous system doing maintenance. A quick reset performed loudly, imperfectly, and surprisingly well. Taking long showers. At some point, your shower stops being about getting clean and turns into a one-person retreat. You're standing there, water running, solving life problems you didn't even know were queued up. Some showers also help you forget if you're crying or not. Long showers put your brain into a rare state where it finally stops being yanked around by tasks. The warmth relaxes your body, the repetition keeps your hands busy, and your mind slips into creative autopilot. Neuroscientists call this default mode network activity, the same mental state linked to daydreaming, insight, and sudden aha moments. That's why so many breakthroughs happen while staring at tile grout. There's chemistry involved too. Warm water lowers stress hormones and nudges dopamine upward, which makes ideas feel more playful and less intimidating. For people juggling constant decisions all day, the shower becomes a socially acceptable place to disappear and reboot. Yes, the water bill notices, but mentally, those long showers are doing real work. Sometimes the best thinking happens when you're supposedly doing nothing at all. Rewatching the same show. You just finished watching a marathon of Harry Potter movies. You stare at the credits for a second, and then go right back to the first movie to relive the thrill for the 6th time, and somehow, it's still just as amazing. Rewatching a beloved show or rereading a favorite book is emotional efficiency. Your brain already knows the plot, so it relaxes. No suspense spikes or cognitive scrambling, just a familiar emotional landscape where nothing bad surprises you. Psychologists link this to comfort and mood regulation. Nostalgic stories act like a mental weighted blanket. There's a cognitive bonus too. When you're no longer chasing what happens next, your attention shifts to how it happens. You notice patterns, character motivations, foreshadowing, tiny details the first pass bulldozed right over. That's metacognition in action. Thinking about thinking, learning how stories are built. Sure, living only in familiar stories can limit exploration, but returning to a known narrative can help strengthen memories and build cognitive depth. Sometimes the richest discoveries come from places you already know by heart. Talking to pets or objects. You tell your dog you'll be right back like they understand calendars and time. You thank the car out loud when it starts on the first try. None of this feels strange in the moment, and that's because your brain is doing what it's best at, practicing social connection. Talking to pets or objects, also called anthropomorphism, activates the same mental systems you use to understand people. You're assigning intentions, moods, and reactions, which exercises empathy and perspective taking. That skill, figuring out what someone else might be feeling or thinking, gets stronger with use, even when the someone is a cat who doesn't pay rent. There's emotional value too. Pets, especially, become safe listeners. You can vent, joke, or narrate your day without worrying about judgment or misinterpretation. That low-risk outlet helps regulate emotion and reduces loneliness, which is why people who anthropomorphize their pets often report feeling more supported. As long as reality stays intact, your dog doesn't need an iPhone. This habit isn't silly. It's the human brain staying social, even when humans aren't around. Eating spicy food. You sit down to eat, take one bite, and immediately regret every life choice that led you here. Your eyes water, your nose runs, but oddly, you keep eating. This is the pain and pleasure of eating spicy food. Capsaicin doesn't burn you. It convinces your nervous system that you're on fire. Pain receptors light up. Your body panics for a split second, and your brain responds by dumping endorphins and dopamine into the system. The same chemicals behind a runner's high show up to calm the chaos. That's why the pain flips into pleasure, and why people chase heat instead of avoiding it. There's a practical upside too. That endorphin surge can blunt other discomforts, which helps explain why people who love spicy food often report lower sensitivity to everyday aches. The intensity also snaps you out of mental fog. A spicy meal raises heart rate, wakes up the senses, and drags your attention fully into the present moment. Of course, pushing it too far can upset your stomach and ruin your afternoon plans, but in moderation, spicy food turns pain into a controlled thrill, a fast, edible way to wake up your brain and boost your mood. Wearing the same outfit daily. At some point, opening your closet stops feeling like self-expression and starts feeling like a low-stakes exam you didn't study for. Shirt A or shirt B, casual or casual but trying. Multiply that by every morning and suddenly you're already tired. That's why wearing the same outfit every day quietly works. It deletes a decision that never deserved your brain power in the first place. When the uniform is set, your mind skips the outfit spiral and moves straight to things that actually matter. Psychologists call this decision fatigue reduction. Everyone else calls it feeling less brain drained by noon. There's an emotional bonus too. A fixed outfit removes the second-guessing loop. No mere negotiations, no regret halfway through the day. You just get dressed and go. That mental calm adds up, especially when bigger choices are waiting later. Sure, uniforms aren't about fashion or making a bold statement. They're about clarity. When your clothes stop demanding attention, your thinking finally gets it. Favoring voice notes. You've been trying to write the perfect text for the past hour, triple-checking every word, so instead you hit record and just talk. That preference makes sense. Voice notes carry tone, pacing, emphasis. The emotional metadata a text message will lose. A pause can soften a message. A laugh can signal warmth. Urgency sounds urgent without needing 5 exclamation points. Hearing someone's voice activates social connection in a way typed words rarely manage, which is why voice notes often feel more personal even when they're casual. They're also efficient. Complex ideas spill out naturally when spoken, without the mental gymnastics of turning thoughts into perfectly edited sentences. Voice notes land in a sweet spot, richer than text, less demanding than a phone call, and far less anxiety-inducing than ringing someone out of the blue. Of course, voice notes demand attention. They can't be skimmed in a meeting or searched later, but in the right context, they trade convenience for clarity, and connection usually wins that deal. Sniffing books, or old clothes. You open an old book and, without really planning to, bring it a little closer to your face. Smell has a direct hotline to memory and emotion. Unlike sights or sounds, it skips the brain's usual processing cues and goes straight to the amygdala and hippocampus, the regions controlling emotions and memory. That's why one sniff can unlock scenes you haven't thought about in years. Mood, details, and emotion all arrive at once. This makes scent one of the fastest self-soothing tools humans have. Familiar smells lower stress, stabilize emotions, and create a sense of safety almost instantly. That's why people instinctively sniff old clothes, books, or blankets during moments of overwhelm. The brain recognizes the scent and quietly says, "We've survived before." There's a cognitive side too. Because smell accesses memory so efficiently, it can sharpen recall and emotional clarity faster than other senses. One inhale can retrieve entire chapters of experience. Of course, not every scent is friendly. Some memories bite back, but when the association is warm, sniffing something familiar is neurological time travel with a comfort setting. Fidgeting. Your foot starts bouncing during a meeting. Somewhere nearby, someone silently judges you. But that constant motion isn't your brain misbehaving. It's actually your brain working. Fidgeting is a built-in self-regulation tool. Small, repetitive movements give the nervous system just enough stimulation to stay anchored in the present moment. Without it, the mind often wanders inward, into boredom, intrusive thoughts, or mental static. The movement acts like a stabilizer, keeping attention from drifting off the runway. That's why many people fidget more when they're trying to concentrate, not when they're relaxed. There's also an energy release component. Stress, excitement, or cognitive overload builds pressure, and fidgeting quietly vents it. Instead of bottling that tension, the body leaks it out in harmless micro-motions. Think of it as shaking excess charge off a wire so the signal stays clean. Of course, when these habits become compulsive or harmful, support matters, but everyday fidgeting shows regulation in motion, your nervous system fine-tuning itself in real time. Overusing emojis and exclamation marks. You just sent a text to your crush and noticed you ended every sentence with an exclamation mark. This is more than embarrassing. It's a little too much excitement and starting to edge into creepiness. But don't fret. That instinct to sound excited is doing real social work. Emojis and exclamation points act as tone translators in a medium that strip tone away. Without facial expressions or voice, the brain fills in gaps, often incorrectly. A smiley face or an extra exclamation mark steps in to say, "I promise I'm not a creep." There's also a connection boost. People subconsciously mirror emoji styles, and that matching makes interactions feel warmer and more cooperative. Texts with emotional cues land faster, feel clearer, and create a sense of responsiveness that plain text struggles to achieve. Of course, emojis can feel unprofessional, and too many can look chaotic in the wrong context. But in everyday communication, overusing emojis and exclamation points usually signals effort, friendliness, and emotional clarity. Think of it as digital body language, hands waving enthusiastically because the face isn't there to do it for you. Eating the same meal every day. At some point, you realize lunch has become a recurring character in your life. You use the same plate, same utensils, and eat the same baked chicken, broccoli, and pasta. Same quiet confidence that this meal will not surprise you emotionally or nutritionally. That sounds kind of nice. Eating the same meal every day clears mental clutter. Food decisions sneakily drain energy. What to eat, how healthy it is, whether it fits your caloric goals. When the answer is already decided, your brain gets to clock out early. That consistency makes it easier to hit nutrient targets without negotiating with yourself 3 times a day. For people juggling work, health goals, or decision-heavy lives, repetition becomes a form of relief. There's also a compliance advantage. Habits stick when they're boring. A familiar meal removes friction, which is why athletes, busy professionals, and anyone trying to stabilize their routines lean into sameness. Once nutrition stops being a daily puzzle, it becomes background support for everything else. The catch is variety. Bodies thrive on diversity, especially at the micronutrient level. eating the same thing forever can quietly shortchange gut health and essential macronutrients if rotation never happens. Still, when done thoughtfully, repeating meals turns food into fuel instead of a daily debate. Sometimes simplicity is the healthiest ingredient. Rehearsing arguments in the shower. 1 minute you're washing off your sweat, the next you're delivering a flawless speech to your shampoo. Welcome to the shower debate arena. Rehearsing arguments in your head is the brain-running scenario planning on autopilot. With no distractions, your mind simulates difficult conversations the way a flight simulator trains pilots. Safely, privately, and with zero real-world fallout. You test wording, emotional reactions, timing, and outcomes before anything actually happens. That rehearsal sharpens judgment and reduces snap decisions when stakes are real. There's also a performance benefit. Mentally practicing language and emotional regulation primes the brain to stay composed later. When the real conversation happens, your nervous system recognizes the terrain, so you'll have fewer surprises and better delivery. The line gets crossed when rehearsal turns into endless replay, but in its healthy form, arguing in the shower is cognitive armor, quietly forged before you ever step into the room. Excessive note-taking. Your brain feels like a browser with 47 tabs open. 8 are playing music and 2 are probably crashed, so you grab 12 sticky notes instead. That habit of writing everything down gets labeled obsessive. But cognitively, it's brilliant. Excessive note-taking is the brain outsourcing memory like a smart manager. Instead of forcing your working memory to juggle tasks, reminders, and half-formed ideas, you park them somewhere safe. That frees mental bandwidth for actually doing things. Psychologists call this cognitive offloading. Regular people call it finally breathing again. There's more. Writing, especially by hand, forces your thoughts to slow down and line up. You can't dump chaos onto paper without organizing it a little first. That structure reduces stress, quiets intrusive thoughts, and improves focus. Studies even show handwritten notes lead to deeper understanding and better long-term recall than typing, because your brain has to process and translate ideas, not just copy them. Yes, lists can become a trap if perfection replaces action, but used well, excessive notes can help your brain build external RAM so your brain can run smoother. Always early. If you're always the first to a party, wondering why no one else understands how time works. Or if you arrive 10 minutes before your dental appointment, even though that teeth drilling noise gives you nightmares. Welcome to the world of hyper-punctuality. This habit buys you peace of mind. Hyper-punctual people build time buffers the way engineers build safety margins. Traffic happens, elevators stall, and life throws small wrenches. But arriving early means those surprises land softly instead of triggering a cortisol spike and a panicked apology. Your brain stays steady, while everyone else is sprinting and hot and flustered. There's a trust dividend too. Showing up early and consistently sends a quiet signal that you're dependable, prepared, and respectful. People remember that. Over time, it shapes how much responsibility you're given and how seriously your words are taken, often without you ever saying a thing. Of course, taken too far, punctuality can slide into anxiety-driven rigidity, but in its healthy form, being early brings peace of mind with a little extra time and calm. If you like this video and want to learn more about unique hidden advantages, check out this other video.